Oh, hi again. Welcome to my channel. My name is Marietta. My channel is Dragonfly. And the series I'm doing is Hollywood, back in the day, Hollywood deaths. Could be murder, suicide, natural, whatever. So, today, and I do not have eyeliner on today. My eyes were very itchy, so I left off the eyeliner. So I'm probably very pale looking, and right here is the sun coming in from my window. Okay, today's person is his born name, Jose Ramon Gil Samaniego, known as Ramon Navarro. He changed his name when he became a singing waiter and an actor because his friends who were in the business took him under their wing and convinced him to change his name. Okay, well, Ramon, he was born in Durango, Mexico, but his family, with his 12 siblings, moved to Los Angeles because of the Mexican Revolution. And that was in 1913. So he was born in 1899, so he was 14. His father was a very well-respected dentist, and his grandfather was a very renowned physician, as well as, that was my dog, as well as a political icon. Had quite a few positions in Durango, Mexico. So his family was quite influential and important. When he started acting in 1917, so which would make him 18, and started getting small bits. And in the, as I said, in the time between gigs, he worked as a singing waiter because he had apparently a very beautiful voice. And again, you know, I have to have notes because nothing stays in my brain for more than 5 minutes at a time. So, here we go. These friends who were very influential, like I said, they thought he could actually surpass Rudolph Valentino as the premier Latin lover. And he started in 1923, he started gaining traction as getting the parts he wanted. It was still silent movies at the time, and he was in the movie Scaramouche in 1923, and then he went on to Ben-Hur in 1925. Now, if you remember, this was pre-code, and pre-code in the pictures they were before the censors really took over, and before the censors came aboard, before the codes came aboard, the thoughts were a lot freer, and he was often kind of chastised for his for the outfits he would wear. In Ben-Hur, he basically wore a toga. In Scaramouche and in his swashbuckling movies, he would basically wear just the pirate pants with a sash and maybe a headscarf, leaving his chest bare, which was very unusual for the time of in the world. It was a very everyone was very judgmental, let's say. Not as I don't believe the world was any more moral. I believe it was more judgmental, and that's a big difference. He was in 1926. Unfortunately, Rudolph Valentino passed away suddenly and very young. And it really did open up that genre for Ramon. He became the Latin lover. And he played many period roles. Like I said, the swashbucklers and wearing these elaborate costumes and just so many different kinds of roles. Not just the Latin lover. He was in. I remember the one movie that I can't remember the name of, but he was a college student who didn't fit in and had to make his way through the college system. And he began singing when it came into the talkies. So he really had a great career because he transitioned, which was very rare. He transitioned from the silence into the talkies. Now, he starred with a lot of stars that you would know. He was in 56 movies between 1917, which was silent, and around 1930 became talkies, until 1960. So he did movies between 1917 and 1960. That's amazing. Of course, the bulk of the movies he was in were in the early days. He was also in 7 TV shows between 1958 and 1968. Most of these were as guest stars in detective shows, the hour detective shows like Law and Order we would have now, and they have a guest star. That's the kind of show he would be on. Okay, one of the thing that brings his death around, and I don't know, I'm not exactly sure when it was. It was around 1929, 1930, and he lost his contract. He had played with Myrna Loy, with Lupe Velez, Greta Garbo, but his contract was not taken up again by the studio because he was a homosexual, and not expressly because he was a homosexual, but because he would not enter into a lavender marriage. Now, lavender marriage would go on both sides for men and women who, lesbian women and homosexual men. It was a man would marry a starlet, and they would that would be their kind of fake marriage, would be a lavender marriage. It was to, so that the fans would not learn that they were homosexual. And like I said, in some of the marriages, the women, it was for lesbians. And I'm not exactly what couple it was, but I knew that the man was a homosexual and the woman was a lesbian, so they married. Um, it just made it so much easier for them. But it was a horrible, horrible, horrible judgmental time. So he kept losing, his parts started going down and down and down. And although he did make the 56 movies, as the time went on, they were walk-on parts, or he would play himself as a cameo role, or he would, just very small parts, very small. But he was very smart. When he was at his top, he made quite a bit of money. And he took the money and invested it in real estate around California. For his own home, he purchased a home designed by Frank Lloyd Wright's son. And it was quite an outstanding home, and still is. It was in the canyon where the Hollywood land sign at that time was at the top of. And so he made it so that the real estate investments he made his life comfortable, and he really didn't have to work. But he had many friends. He loved to entertain at his home. He kept his home beautifully. He had a few relationships, but none that really lasted or were very long. So as his as he got older, when he was 69, he had been in the habit of hiring male escorts. So, and he would not just hire them. They would become a guest in his home for the evening. They would have drinks. He would play piano for them. They would have a chat. They would, he was a very proper and polite man. And so on October 30th of 1968, two brothers, Paul and Thomas Ferguson. Paul was 22, Thomas was 17. They had gotten Ramon's number from another male escort. Now, these two were not escorts. They were hustlers. They were male hustlers, which is a totally different entity. But when they called him, they dropped the name of the person who had given them the number, and he figured he knew this other man, and that these two brothers would be safe, and made arrangements for them to come over. When they came there, he welcomed them. He gave them drinks. He even played his piano for them. He showed them around his home, because it was a very palatial, historic home. And things started to settle down. And Paul went over to him and asked him where the $5,000 was. And he said, I don't keep large sums of money in my home. It's not safe. And Paul just looked at him again and said, where is the $5,000? And he said, I promise you, I don't have any money. So Paul started to hit him. And they would beat on him. Thomas would take turns beating on him. Thomas at one point called his girlfriend while sitting in the room while Ramon was being beaten by Paul, and she could hear him screaming in the background. And she never did anything. So he was an older man. He was 69. And the beating he would pass out. So they dragged him to the bathroom. And they laid him out in the bathroom, and every time he would pass out, they would throw water on him to revive him. And they got a cane, and they would hit him in the face, and they would hit him in the genitalia, back and forth. Where is the $5,000? And he would pass out and wake up, and they would ask him, and he would say, I do not have $5,000. Now, as I'm imagining, they actually got tired because they beat him so savagely. And I guess they realized that he was not hiding $5,000 because he would have given it up for this instead of having this beating. So they took him, and he was so broken. His face was broken. His arms were broken. His ribs were broken. His lungs were punctured. Parts of his body were injured inside. He was bleeding profusely. And they just callously tossed him onto his bed. He could not move. He was so injured. And they took $20 that he had in his bathrobe and left. So they got a whole $20 from him. But like I said, they threw him on the bed, on his back, and he could not move. If he had been thrown on the bed on his stomach or on his side, he would not have died. But being thrown on his back, he asphyxiated. He drowned on his own blood. Alone, struggling to breathe in his own beautiful home, where he trusted people, where he had spent a lifetime, and he passed away. So devastating. So they were caught quite quickly and were tried and were found guilty. Paul got 9 years. Thomas got 6. How is that possible? For viciously, savagely beating this man to death. But it was a different time. The the reasons he was beaten might have been dismissed by other people as, oh, he deserved it. Oh, he asked for it. For 6 and 9 years to be given as a punishment for taking a man's life and for taking it so savagely. It was an outrage and a total disgrace. And both of them were paroled in the early 70s. So they didn't even do the time that they were given. And I'm going to have to look at the dates real quick. Paul, in 1998, finally admitted to all that had happened to Ramon. All he had done to him. All he and his brother had done to him in an interview for I don't know if it was for a book or for a television show. I believe it was a book. And, but he could get no more time because he had done his time for that murder. But he is in jail to this day because he got 60 years for rape. And Thomas, and let me look again, Thomas had been in and out of jail this whole time. And in 2005, Thomas took his own life. So there is some justice, although it's way, way, way too late for the death of Ramon Navarro. A very kind man, a gentleman, friendly, probably lonely. He was a devout Catholic. He had 2 sisters who were nuns, so he had to hide his homosexuality from his family. He had to hide it from the world because of the time he was born and the time he lived, and the being an actor. Although we know now of quite a few lavender weddings, he was not going to take that stance and hide what he was. He would not admit it. He wouldn't have been foolish enough at that time in the world to admit it, but he wasn't going to deny it as with a lavender wedding. He wasn't going to cover it up. He just did not mention it. So he suffered his entire life as that devout Catholic, never revealing to his family what was in his heart. It's very difficult. And then to die so tragically at the hands of monsters. It was not, this is one of the sad, sad, sad murders of Hollywood. I don't know if you've heard of Ramon Navarro. I would tell you to go watch one of his movies. Go to TCM. See if you can find one. Just go on Google and maybe you can find one, or at least you can find information about him. because he was very talented. And he was one of the forerunners of the silent age and the talkies. So, I'm sorry to bring you a sad tale, but I'm guessing with the series I'm running, there's going to be quite a few sad tales. A lot you will know, and a lot maybe like this you might have heard of, but you weren't quite aware. But you take care, my goblins. You take care and be well.